Mitch Kupchak spoke yesterday for his end-of-season media availability. He talked about a lot, including LaMelo Ball, and Nata Edwards joins us. He comes back home to talk all about it. That's all today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. And this episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/NBA60 and use code NBA60 for 60% off plus free shipping. So big thanks to HelloFresh.
Hello.
And big thanks to Nata Edwards. Appreciate him hopping on. Follow him on Twitter at Nata the Scribe, the producer extraordinaire for the Ion College Basketball Podcast. We're going to put him to some more work about the NBA draft since he is the one watching all the college basketball. And now you're doing NFL draft stuff, right? They keep you busy over at CBS?
Yeah. Just when I think I'm out, they bring me back in. And I could say that about this podcast as well.
About to say,
I'm doing a lot of work. I am doing
buddy.
a lot of work right now. And we'll see. Again, it'll be draft, basically up until July 1st. And then I'll figure out what I'll do then. So we'll see.
It's cute that you think you can leave sometimes. We're always going to bring you back.
Yeah.
100%. No matter what, we'll always bring you back.
Absolutely.
That's Doug Branson. Catch his work on everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can listen to me, Walker Mail, on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. All right, there is a lot to comb through here, so let's get right to it with what Mitch Kupchak had to say yesterday. And as we typically do, let's start with LaMelo Ball, the star, the guy that we all want to hold on to. And LaMelo even said, look, he loves it here in Charlotte. But during his end-of-season media availability, he talked about how he's going to take it day by day and that he cannot tell the future. So the latter of that comment left people a little uneasy because it wasn't as overwhelmingly, overwhelmingly saying, yes, I want to stay here in Charlotte. He'd left some room for doubt because, look, he's right. Nothing he said there was wrong. We don't know what the future is going to hold. Here's Mitch Kupchak talking about his star on some of the things he could improve on during the offseason and some other things. Here's Mitch Kupchak.
At some point, a big step, is going to be the leadership role, right? That's not the kind of thing that you can come in at 19 or 20 or 21 and then just kind of say, I'm going to be a leader, right? It doesn't happen that way. It's going to happen gradually. And that affects, the locker room, right? Being accountable, continuing to be professional, lead by example. So, that's not going to happen, this year or maybe even next year, right? But that's going to be another big step for him.
And so there's Mitch Kupchak talking about the leadership role, which has Doug laughing. All right, Doug, tell us why you're laughing. We all need to know why this is a part of the pod.
We need to know.
Well, look, I mean, these segments are supposed to be short and sweet. And so as a producer, it would be responsible of me to cut out all of those filler words, but that's part of the Mitch Kupchak experience. So, I couldn't do it.
We have to go at a snail's pace when we listen to Mitch Kupchak, and I just accepted that as soon as you told me we have some video clips of him today. But that's the leadership aspect, right? So Mitch Kupchak also talked about him getting stronger and yada, yada, stuff that we talk about every single day. I mean, defensively, whatever. Mitch Kupchak shared a lot of the same stuff that we talked about and what he needs to improve on this offseason. But Nata, how fair is that leadership question about LaMelo, especially being so young? I think whatever he said there was totally understandable. Do you think there is a possibility he takes a big step towards that next year with the guys that are on the roster staying here, and in this situation not being traded, some of the veterans?
Well, LaMelo Ball is probably a really loyal Union man. And so he probably says, you know what? Leadership roles come with leadership pay. So pay me my rookie max, and then I'll be a leader. This is going to have to work. This is the way it's always worked in an NBA system. So therefore, pay this man his rookie max. Make sure that we don't have to fret every time LaMelo decides to say, you know what? I may be 95% certain I want to stay here rather than 100%. Pay him his rookie max. That's the thing that I just keep coming away from this comment from is just, pay him his rookie max. The rest will come because at this point, he's given you no room to doubt him outside of some freak ankle injuries at this point.
Yeah, and the Hornets are going to. They have to. It would be the stupidest thing ever. So they're going to do that. So hopefully when that happens, the status will come along with the age, because I agree. I do think that matters when it comes to being a leader and how he's viewed by his teammates. What do you think of that comment there, Doug?
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board with all of that. It is about status, and status can come from money. It can also come from prior achievements. LaMelo came in to the league somewhat unproven. He was playing overseas. He doesn't have an NCAA tournament run or a championship or anything to lean on. So, but there are some other guys like Scoot Henderson seems to want to come into the league and immediately be a leader. There are some cats that come in and are just built that way to be a leader, to be a vocal leader. But it is a process. And I would say too, you kind of yada-yada'd it, but he did talk about the strength piece. The strength, him getting stronger would allow him to play more games, would allow him to get to the rim a little bit more, would allow him to score a little bit more, which would then result most likely in more status because you're going to get another all-star bid. It might even take your game to all-NBA level. Because look, if LaMelo Ball had come into this season, stayed healthy, and got to the rim more, got fouled more, put up more points, and gotten an all-NBA, third-team all-NBA, that's a status that you can take into that next season and go, all right, I have some authority now because I've done something that Terry Rozier has not done. I've done something that, not a lot of people on this team have done. I don't know if Gordon Hayward has an all-NBA. I don't think he does.
No, he doesn't. He just got one all-star appearance.
Yeah, so I've done something now that nobody else has done. So now, I have some authority here. But even taking all that into account, we don't know, even if he does get that status, if that's LaMelo's whole vibe. Maybe it becomes his vibe as he gets older and wiser and more seasoned. But look, some guys just aren't built to be that kind of leader. The Hornets may, as they evaluate this thing, may have to go out and find that particular person, whether it's in the draft or free agency.
Yeah, maybe they do. And I do think LaMelo has a shot at having that in him. I guess you're right. Sure. We just don't know yet for sure. But yeah, you're right. I do think as he gets older and as he does achieve some of those bigger titles that you can gain, not only just having the all-star title that he has right now, but also possibly flirting with all-NBA performances and, of course, being the leader for a playoff team. And it's not, sorry for the yada yada, Mitch. I didn't mean to disrespect you.
Don't apologize, Mitch.
But the thing is, right, it's just not, the reason I did it is because we've all talked about that ad nauseum, okay? We talk about LaMelo a lot on the Daily Hornets podcast. None of that was anything different to me. The leadership stuff, even if we've mentioned it, it was interesting to hear his GM talk about it and also talk about it with the wherewithal, saying he doesn't expect it here. And he even said he doesn't necessarily expect it next season, but at some point that's going to have to come. Doug, you had one other thing before we finished?
Well, I think, you can put all of these comments into context when you think about, when they were elevating him for his all-star bid, they were also elevating other players on this team. And a lot of people are confused about that. Why are you putting Miles Bridges and Terry Rozier when it's clear that LaMelo Ball is the one that's in line to get the all-star bid? And I think all of this you have to take all of that into account and go, all right, well, they didn't think he was ready to be the leader of the team. And so you group him into some certain players until he is ready to take that mantle. That's how they view him. And, I think LaMelo will take all of this very well as not necessarily a challenge, but just that's the reality of the situation.
All right, let's go to the next segment. We'll take a brief break from Mitch Kupchak. We'll get back to him in the last segment of the show. But coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We're going to play Chance or Nata Chance with one Nata Edwards, college basketball viewer of the show. We will get to that in just a moment, but I did want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. This game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of an NBA franchise, and you can play through seasons and lead your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty. And in the simulation, you're responsible for everything from dealing with challenging personalities, hiring the right coaches and assistants, trading, and and training the players, making draft picks, and navigating your franchise through free agency, as well as the draft, all the ups and downs as well that come with it, and the multiple seasons. So please check out Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Locked On Hornets listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise too when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download the game. Just visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. Chance or not a chance coming up next.
This is Locked On Hornets.
To start this off, we all know about LeBron and how he built a school and it got a lot of fanfare. By the time 2019 closes, Bismack Biyombo is planning to have 6
Take
schools.
that, LeBron.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I'm excited for this game. We got the top prospects here. Ready to get Nata's opinion on them. Are you ready, Nata? Is NBA draft time ramping up for you? And, you've got your hands in a lot of different things coming up with the prospects.
Look, I got a whole bunch of notes. Let's go. Give me the first prospect right now. I need it right now. I got a fever for it.
All right. Let's do it. Cam Whitmore has been your guy. I know you've talked a lot about Cam Whitmore. So let me ask you this about Cam. Does Cam Whitmore have a chance or not a chance at going number 3 overall in the NBA draft?
Ooh.
There's a chance of that, actually.
Oh,
it really does
yeah.
depend on. We'll get into this more the longer. I have questions about whether Brandon Miller can get by players at the NBA level, get by NBA defenders at the NBA level with his handle. He reminds me a lot more of a Michael Porter Jr. per se, a Rashard Lewis, maybe even a little bit of Diet Harrison Barnes, where he can defend, but the dribble aspect, the scoring off the bounce aspect leaves a little bit to be desired. So, and then on top of that, we're talking about the Thompson twins that I'm not sure I have a better jump shot than right now at this point. So I do think Cam Whitmore, who is going to impress in a lot of, there are a lot of people that are going to get impressed in those private workouts with Cam Whitmore. So I would not be surprised if he ends up being number 3.
All right, so there's a chance of Cam Whitmore going number 3 overall. What do you think about that assessment, Doug? Does that scare you about Brandon Miller? And more so, is Nata starting to make you lean a little bit more towards Whitmore?
No, I've been leaning a little bit towards Whitmore as I've been studying this. He kind of gives me kind of Matrix Reloaded vibes, right? I mean, Cam Whitmore reminds me a little bit of Sean Marion when I watch him.
He does.
You like that?
The one thing I was gonna say about that, the only question I have, and it goes into something I know you guys are gonna probably talk about later this week. What's the status of Miles Bridges? Because those two are kind of redundant players. I do believe that Cam Whitmore is just a dynamic athlete in the mold of Miles Bridges, but they play similar games. They play with similar ferocity. So if you are planning on moving away from Miles Bridges, Cam Whitmore is a really, really, really good alternative.
Doug,
what did I do?
Well, Mitch Kupchak did speak about Miles Bridges at the press conference. We're going to get more into that tomorrow. But I'll just say this, like if they allow the situation around the NBA investigation into Miles Bridges, if they allow that whole deal to freeze a second straight offseason and allow it to leak into the decision on this top possibly 3, possibly whatever pick, that would be a disaster in my mind. You cannot let that influence, because even if they decide to bring Miles Bridges back, I think there are enough question marks around him as a player and a person that you don't want to stake your entire future. You shouldn't stake your entire future in that player. So they just absolutely cannot let that be a burden on their offseason. So I would take Cam Whitmore regardless.
Plus, that kind of player, it's not like I feel like you can have enough of those if you especially feel Cam Whitmore can defend a little better across the board, which I don't know. I don't know as much about him as far as a prospect goes. So yeah, okay. Well, we'll see. I would not mind having 2 Miles as far as the skill set goes on the roster as well. Hopefully, with somebody could be improving that person. All right, so Brandon Miller. Let's move on to him. Nata, you mentioned him a little bit.
Boy.
I know you're worried a little bit about him not being able to drive by his man. And so with that, because of that, Brandon Miller falling below 4, do you think there's a chance or not a chance?
Not a chance. Not a chance. I think if Whitmore goes 3, Brandon Miller goes 4. And that's because the polish and what he did on a national level this year deserves a lot of acclaim, especially leading a team in Alabama that really didn't have that much senior leadership. I do believe that we're talking about a guy that at his worst is probably the second best shooter in the draft. Shooting and length, and his length is a premium. It's just the one thing that you don't like. And he's still going to be a top 2, top 3 rotation guy around his career. So I don't see a scenario in which he drops below 4. If he drops further than 5, I think there's going to be a mess. Like, I could see Utah being like, look, let me trade up to 5. Let me trade both those picks. I can see a scenario with that, but I think Brandon Miller's a top 5 draft pick in this class. I just don't think he's getting below 4, depending on who it is.
Doug, on the very early Branson big board, do you have Brandon Miller 4 overall or higher, even if you have Whitmore 3, or could you see this happening where Brandon drops below and is possibly taken 5 or later?
On my personal big board, he's 4. And I've got Cam Whitmore 3, and then I'm in 5 at this point. And it's because Brandon Miller has enough of the tools, of every single one of the tools that would lead to star player. Whereas, as you know, not to mention there, the jump shot is just not there. So you would really be betting on all of that to come together, where I think Brandon Miller is a bit more of a sure bet to be a big time star and does have the shooting. As Mitch Kupchak said in the press conference that he just did, you can't ever have enough shooting. This team did not shoot the basketball well. So adding shooting would not hurt this team at all. So Brandon Miller would definitely be 4 on my big board. The thing that I would say, though, is that there is this lingering, issue around the shooting that took place, and it didn't affect his ability to get playing time in Alabama, but I think it's definitely going to come up in all of his interviews, and we saw interviews affect LaMelo Ball and where he was taken. He could have been number 1 overall, but the interviews, reportedly didn't go well with Golden State, and it can cause you to drop a few spots. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Brandon Miller can't adequately address that situation, and GMs don't want to take a chance on. I would hope that this particular front office would be a little bit concerned about some issues that happen off the court.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, make our lives easier, please, Hornets. Just please make our lives easier. All right, let's go to the next one. Doug brought up Amen Thompson. Let's bring his brother into this too. So Nata, when it comes to the Thompson twins, let me look it up real quickly. The Thompson twins, Amen and Asar, falling out of the top 10.
What did you look up there?
I just wanted to look up your phrasing. I was looking up I needed to get to the actual question the way that it was phrased. And so I wanted to make sure it was top 10, not top 5. With that being said, Thompson twins, Amen and Asar, possibility of them falling out of the top 10, chance or not a chance?
Not a chance. No. That athleticism is way too ridiculous for them to ever fall any further than 8. Like, I don't see Amen falling out. I personally don't see Amen falling out of the top 6. I don't like Asar is the other one that I'm not so sure of. If you're going to tell me that I can split the baby, yeah, I can see Asar maybe making it to 11. But the athleticism is way too ridiculous for them. I would say this, though. They're kind of at the back half of this draft for me right now. I kind of have a Grady Dick over them. I kind of have Nick Smith Jr., maybe even a Keontae George, because there's this polish, and I know they've gone up against guys that can actually push them. I hate the overtime leads against them, but at the same point, they did a lot of stuff with where the competition wasn't as good for me. So
well, isn't that the thing though, Nata? Like the overtime elite, I'm not sure how many people listening or watching this show even have a firm idea of what overtime elite is. Maybe you can shed some light on that. This league that both Thompson twins have been participating in. But that's the question that I have. And I think the thing that could, if they do fall out of the top 10, that's the thing you're going to point to, is that GMs take a look at their tape and then get some, intel on this overtime elite situation and go, that's it. They just didn't play enough competition for me to have, to take that kind of chance on a top 10 pick. So, I mean, how serious is that when you, because you do a podcast on college basketball. So I'm interested in like these college basketball experts that are on your podcast that come on as guests that are your host. How do they view the whole overtime elite situation?
They don't. Like, that's the thing. I do want, but here's the thing about that. Here's the thing that we got to remember about this. Shaedon Sharpe didn't play a single minute of college basketball last year and ended up with workouts being a top 7, top 8 pick. The Thompson twins will get these workouts. The Thompson twins are going to allure somebody in the top 10 with their athleticism, and they will be top 10 picks. The overtime elite thing is a personal concern. I'm not sure overall it's going to end up being a massive concern for everybody going forward.
Real quickly, is the athleticism with those guys in the same realm as Shaedon? I watching him in person, is it okay?
Yes.
If that's the case, I mean, Shaedon, I don't know how to describe Shaedon Sharpe when he rises up. Like that guy was nuts. Seeing him in person, I didn't realize that he was built like a linebacker too, except as a taller linebacker. And he can jump with his head hitting the ceiling. Anyways, all right. That was just
I don't know about Osar, but Amin is super strong as well. And so both these guys have to be at the combine, right? They can't afford to skip.
They will be.
Yeah,
they will.
Yeah, they have to be. So I think the combine, this could be one of the more interesting combines, because for the past few years it's been more about the guys who don't participate than the guys who do. But I think there are so many questions this year about a lot of these guys that I think the combine is going to be super interesting. You mentioned Grady Dick, so I've got one more chance or not a chance for Grady Dick. Chance or not a chance, Grady Dick becomes the most famous Dick in NBA history.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, that's absolutely a chance. No, that there's a chance. I think that's
I've got a list.
certainty.
I've got a top 10 list. I'm not sure we're ready to share it yet, but I do have a top 10 list of this is not NBA history. This is top 10 list of the most famous dicks in basketball history.
All right. Okay. Wait. So you brought up the list, and then you said we're not ready.
I don't know if
You're
I'm
not
ready.
Sure if we're ready.
Well, because I have the list of names. I don't. There's some research behind it. I don't have it in front of me. I can give you. I can just go ahead and give you a name. I can go ahead and give you the 10th most famous dick in basketball history without any context.
Barry out of this, guys.
Yeah, no, he's number one, no doubt. Oh God, I had to talk to him one time on the phone as a guest, and I'm telling you, all of the rumors, not even the rumors, just he held true to character with me on the phone. Yes, that is a great answer.
I'll tell you right now,
Rick
Rick Barry is not on my list of the most famous dicks in basketball history.
Okay, go ahead.
It is number. I'll just go ahead and reveal number 10 right now. Maybe we can just sort of meet this out as we go towards the draft. The 10th most famous dick in basketball history is Dick Garrett. That's number 10. Got a long way to go. Dick Garrett.
I thought you were going to mention Draymond Green and Snapchat for a second.
Oh no. Okay, let's move on.
Hey,
Coming
dude,
up
come
next
on. Don't ruin the list. Come on.
Hit the graphic. Play the graphic, Doug. Play the graphic now. Can't do it soon enough. Coming up next.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets.
Goodness gracious, that was the longest it's ever been to play the coming up graphic. We will not talk about Draymond Green or any of his appendages coming up in the next segment. But this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back. Sorry, FanDuel, that we roped you into this. There's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. I'm still listening to it. I'm still hearing it in my head. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets
is Locked On Hornets.
I think you guys are kind of being a little hard.
Wow.
They are again, and this is me trying to be Mr. Positivity, which is really not my role, but they're
the turntables have definitely turned here. This is this is absolutely not your role. And in fact, I think leaving this podcast has turned you into a completely different person when it comes to the
changed,
Hornets.
man.
So what I'm saying is I think we should discredit whatever you're about to say even before you say it. Go ahead.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time. I did want to get to this Mitch Kupchak clip and then maybe go to 1, 2, 3 of the other most famous dicks in NBA history. Let's go to the Mitch Kupchak clip about how he's trying to figure out ways to bring in talent, but he's given you a lot of the same old song and dance, something we've heard quite a bit from Mitch Kupchak when you talk about...
I'd love to hear Mitch Kupchak sing and watch him dance.
Oh, it'd be a sight to behold. Here's Mitch Kupchak talking about offseason priorities and the process that comes with it.
Our young players, very high on our young players, but they are young, right? We've got some free agent challenges, that we have to address, at the beginning of July. And we've got considerable currency, whether it's, the draft picks, 5 picks. Almost all of them are in the top 45 in the draft. I think 4 of them are maybe in the top 40. And although we have a lot of financial flexibility, we don't typically go big game hunting with our free agent money. We're going to use that to sign back players.
All right. So we've heard this before. We've heard the fact that because he's in Charlotte now, that you can't go big game hunting as he presents it, Doug. I mean, how tired are you of hearing we're not going to be big players in free agency? Because he says it every single time. Every single time you ask him about how to acquire talent, he talks about how it's tough to do that sort of thing being here in Charlotte.
He said big game hunting so comfortably. It makes me think that at some point, Mitch Kupchak has actually been big game hunting. I feel like there's a picture somewhere. It's not on the internet. It's being hidden somewhere of him, elbow on the head of a dead lion.
It's in his cigar room. Is that where it is? I could see that.
Yeah. So I think he's been big game hunting. Maybe he's hunted the most dangerous game, humans. We don't know. I'm speculating at this point. It's dangerous speculation, but it's speculation.
I hope not. I think I might have to boycott the Hornets if it's anything like the Jimmy Johns thing, where I had to boycott that for a little while with big game. Just don't tell me you killed any elephants, man. Don't do that. I just hope that didn't happen.
Kevin the elephant. That
was a stretch, but I'll allow it.
Okay, thank you. I am tired of hearing this. I don't know about you, Nata. I'm just tired of hearing what we can't do as a franchise instead of what we can do, while we are mired in season after season of not making the playoffs or getting blown out in play-in games, of maybe getting a coach, but then we can't get a coach. Just all these fumbles and foibles. And then to constantly march out and say, well, we do what we can. Like, it's just getting exhausting to me at this point. I don't know how you feel about it, Nata.
I'm at the point now where, he didn't need to I feel like this is an unforced error of sorts, because what's the big game out there? Most of the big game is your own guys. It's Kelly Oubre if you want to bring him back, and that's a business decision, obviously, as he mentioned. That's PJ Washington, who's probably going to get more money on the market than we thought. He bet on himself. He probably won. That's bringing back Dennis Smith Jr. There's a lot of this where the big game is already in your section of the grasslands, and you've got to sign them. So I'm okay with bringing this stuff back, but I also want to point out that he keeps mentioning that financial flexibility and the draft picks. There is no chance of bringing in 5 guys. None.
No.
None whatsoever. So I do think that there is a chance. I think what he's doing somewhat in his own little Mitch Kupchak way is saying, hey, we're not going to go after the big money free agents, but we can still make some moves and move some pieces around. I just wish the messaging was a lot better than it was, because I do think there is some positivity to be gained from it.
Yeah, I think the organization could stand to have some fresh ideas, some fresh voices, if this team sale does go through, I think that would be one of the benefits of that, is that there is a new mentality about what we can and can't do. And there's a little bit more hope about this Hornets team striking out. I mean, look, there are realities, and I think most people understand that. And it doesn't even need to be said, honestly. But, I think at the same time, a little hope would help at this point. And also, the new CBA that they're signing is going to give more financial flexibility to teams like Charlotte to get into the luxury tax without being so heavily penalized. And I would like to think that this organization would pursue all opportunities, but it feels like there are limitations on what they can do roster building wise that are beyond just the realities of things and are more self-fulfilling prophecy, self-imposed small market mentality. And I hate it. I hate it.
Well, yeah, he reminds you of all the limits as well. And so if you're not going to bring in the 5 draft picks, because clearly you're not going to bring in 5 new guys.
Roster spots.
Right, exactly. And so, and he, this is a guy that didn't want one extra lottery player on his team last year, or first round player last year.
Right.
So
he was wise for that. But let's be fair, he was right.
Why was he right? Why was he right?
Because I think if Miles Bridges doesn't go full psychopath, that becomes another problem in which I'm not sure you're able to keep a Bryce McGowan, who was one of probably your brighter spots on the season. I do think he was kind of right about that. Mitch ends up being right. It's a lot of the time what he does wrong is the messaging. And if he had a better translator, and hey, look, this is a good idea for you. You need a Mitch translator, a happy, positive Mitch truck, because he's cranky old man that tells you we can't afford anything. And then somehow you find a couple of pieces of candy in your pillow, maybe a Jolly Rancher or two, maybe a Werther's. But at the same point, he is really his messaging sucks, but a lot of the time he ends up being right about these things, even though the messaging is miserable.
I would say sometimes he is. And I can hear that. But the big game hunting thing, if you're not going to go with top 5
it was
guys,
unnecessary.
Well, right. And so tell me how you can go out big game hunting. Tell me that you can use some of those assets and trade for Hippo G Anunoby. Tell me that, please. That's what I want to know. So if you can do that, then that would be fantastic. And everything would be just fine. Wash your hands with it and done. All right, let's end with the famous dick here, Doug. Can you tell us a famous dick or a couple of them before we end with Nata?
Number 9.
You better leave J.R. Smith out of this.
Number 9, most famous dick in basketball history is Dick Barnett. The number 8 most famous dick in basketball history, of course, Dick Van Arsdale.
Yeah, there's a good one. There's a dick I know.
Let's get to 6. Let's go to 6 because 6 actually was a member of the Charlotte Hornets staff at one point. Number 7, most famous dick in basketball history, Dick McGuire. Famous Nick. I think some people that are hoop heads, serious hoop heads, would know that deep cut dick, that deep dick McGuire. Number 6, most famous dick in basketball history is former Hornets head coach, the first Hornets head coach, Dick Harder.
All right. A Hornet dick.
Come back for the top 5 tomorrow.
All right.
Got 5 more. Got 5 more dicks. Most famous dicks in basketball history.
All right. Yeah. We got dicks for you all week long. Famous ones, all sorts of them. We appreciate you joining us. And I'm sorry to anybody who has children listening to this episode. We appreciate it anyway. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks to Nata. Catch him on the Ion College Basketball Podcast. Still churning out content, but also you can catch his work. Working with the NFL draft. What's the draft pod that you're working on, Nata? Tell the people.
It's with the first pick for it's Ryan Wilson and Rick Spielman. Really great draft. Not your typical draft, NFL draft podcast. It's really good. We're gonna have a couple of player interviews. You're gonna love it. I promise.
Nata, final take. First pick, Carolina Panthers. Who they picking?
Did you freeze?
No, he froze. Oh no!
Oh, that's great.
Oh my God! You have to
That's
wait till next
amazing.
time. You have to wait till next time he comes.
That was amazing. That was absolutely fantastic. I like the way that it ended there. Don't bring him back. It's Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. Go check out Nata Edwards and at Nata the Scribe. We appreciate his time here. Thanks for making us your first listen.
God.
Now make your second listen, game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game. Stop choking up. Every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast.